This material is a part of the Oklahoma Historical Society's Oral History Program, Living Legends collection. This material was originally recorded on October the 24th, 1970. It was recorded by the Oklahoma News Network. It was a broadcast from the Robert S. Kerr Lock and Dam dedication at Sallisaw, Oklahoma. The commentator is Mr. Ray McDaniel. The principal speaker for the occasion was President Lyndon B. Johnson. This material was re-recorded on December the 18th, 1985 for inclusion in the permanent collections of the Oral History Program by Judith Michener.
Governor Bartlett, Governor Nye, Senator Harris, Congressman Edmondson, Congressman Hammersmith, my beloved leader, Carl Albert, faithful members of the Corps of Engineers, my loved friends, everyone who has worn or does wear the name of Kerr, the wonderful citizens of the great state of Oklahoma. When I was a young man growing up, I was arranging a ceremony one time where Senator Conway was to appear, and there were a few old men sitting in the park as I was adjusting the microphones, and I overheard these elder citizens talking about the events that was coming that evening, and one of them said, "Well, who is going to introduce Senator Conway?" And the other one said, "Well, Ron Miller, who had been the boy mayor of Corpus Christi." The old man said, "So Roy Miller is going to introduce the senator?" I said, "Yes." Said, "You know Roy Miller?" I said, "Yes. I've known Roy Miller all my life." Said, "I knew him when he was the boy mayor of Corpus Christi." Said, "I was an 80 Miller man that campaign. I opposed him when he was 21. I thought he was too young to hold office. But said, I can tell you one thing for sure. The old senator's sure going to get an introduction." I don't think any of you ever were Andy Albert men, but I knew when I looked at the program that I sure was going to get an introduction. This is one of the proud moments that I have lived. This is one of the days that I have looked forward to. I came here to be with you today so I could celebrate the future. All the future that is embodied in this great dam, in this great project, in this great river. But I came here, too, to honor the memory of one of the greatest characters I ever knew and one of the best friends I ever had, Robert S. Kerr, the senator from Oklahoma. My friend Bob Kerr was a school teacher, and he was a lawyer. He was a soldier and a rancher. He was an oil man, and he was an industrialist. He was a politician and a statesman. He was a humanitarian and an author. He was an orator and a churchman. And in every field, he excelled. He and I went to the United States Senate together, and we were both in the class of 1949 as freshmen. And I never knew an abler or more dedicated or more patriotic or more effective public servant. I believe that Bob Kerr had the ability and the capacity to do anything he wanted to do. He embodied the vision and the strength of character of the pioneers who made this state and this nation great. And above all, he embodied their faith in the future and their optimism about it. As a young man back in the 1930s, Bob Kerr witnessed the tragedies of the Dust Bowl, when the drought sent thousands of farmers into bankruptcy. And in the 1940s, as governor of this state, he watched helplessly as this Arkansas River swept in a roaring flood across the valuable farmland that carried the best of that farmland into the Gulf of Mexico. Bob Kerr decided then and there that man did not have to stand helpless before his environment. So the first bill he introduced in the Senate was to create a committee of federal and state agencies to study the use of water resources. And he then proceeded to make himself the outstanding expert in all the United States Senate on water resources. And it was here on the Arkansas River that Bob Kerr decided to put into practice what he learned. The development of the Arkansas River for transportation, for trade, for flood control, for pollution abatement, for power, was his abiding interest until the hour that he died. And Bob Kerr, more than any other human being, or all of them put together, is responsible for this gigantic river stairway, which reaches 500 miles from the Mississippi and turns the great city of Tulsa into a major inland port. Now, of course, governors and lieutenant governors and members of legislatures and majority leaders like Carl Albert and congressmen like Ed Edmondson and Tom Steed and many others, all were there by his side, as was I, every step of the way. But it was his boldness and his vision and his courage and his brain and his tongue that made this possible. I remember a remark that President John F. Kennedy made to me after Bob Kerr had successfully guided a tough foreign aid bill that we all thought was impossible to pass through the Senate. President Kennedy said that, you know, when Senator Kerr does something for you, he expects something in return. But he hesitated, and he said, but I found that it's always a bargain. And the bargain that President Kennedy was referring to was the development of the Arkansas River. He knew that the cost would be repaid many times, not just to the state of Oklahoma, but to the America that we all love. But to Bob Kerr, this project meant even more than economic development and flood control. It represented a major step in this nation's efforts to conserve water and to keep it pure. And I think that you're going to recognize as the years come and go and we all get a little older, that Bob Kerr was one of the giants of his time who saw years ahead, and he was way ahead of his time. He was our first great water conservation and anti-pollution senator. He was decades ahead of all the rest of us. His father told him that he had settled in Oklahoma in search of land and wood and water. And years later, land and wood and water became Bob Kerr's campaign slogan. It was the title to his book that I wrote the introduction for. the guiding forces of his philosophy. And of the three, Bob Kerr said, water is the key to our civilization. Water has always been one of the humanity's most precious needs and requirements. For water, many wars have been fought. And without it, entire civilizations have vanished from this earth. What we do with the water we have is going to be up to each of you. We can pollute it, we can waste it, we can neglect it, or we can manage it as Senator Kerr wanted us to in a way that will be effective for all the people. But one thing is certain. We're making more demands on water every day. And there are no new undiscovered supplies of water anywhere in the world. America's population stands at something over 205 million people. And each of those 205 million use about 200 gallons of water a day. Every time we draw a tub of bath water, we use more than 25 gallons. Every time that we do a load of wash, we use 6 gallons. Each ton of steel that industry produces requires 70,000 gallons of water. In the next 50 years, our population will double. But the amount of water that is available to us will be the same that was available 5,000 years ago. And I want to say this to you and warn you, it is getting dirtier all the time. I believe, as Robert Kerr believes, that the future of the Southwest will be determined by what we do in the next 20 or 30 years to conserve our water, to keep it clean, to manage it for all the people. If we are farsighted, if we are conservation-minded, if we are willing to pay whatever the costs are required, if we are prepared to make the personal sacrifices that will be needed, then I predict that the future of America will lie right here in the Southwest. And there's still time for us to act. We're still a relative unpopulated region. Our industrial growth is just beginning. We can clean up our rivers and our lakes and our streams. And while we're at it, we can still purify our air and reclaim our ravished countryside. The scars of civilization in this part of America are not yet too deep to be healed. But the time is running out. And this project, and this lock, and this dam, and this waterway must be just a beginning and not an end. It must be more than a tribute to Robert Kerr. It must represent our dedication to Robert Kerr's dream of a nation preserved as God gave it to us, and not as the polluters and the despoilers left it. Thank you very much for asking me to come be with you.
Ladies and gentlemen, for those radio stations that were with us from the very outset, we will continue here just a little while. However, former President Johnson has just delivered his address. We might rejoin this for the ONN because I believe that he was scheduled to push a button, blow a bell to officially dedicate it. However, that may be a little bit later in the program. So we have heard this project described, I believe, fully by the speakers today. And we might say that to show that this river really is navigable, a riverboat was locked through the W.D. Mayo Dam at its dedication, the Lock and Dam, several miles downstream. At about 10 o'clock this morning, the ceremonies were conducted down there. That riverboat has now made its way upstream and is now here at the Robert S. Kerr Lock and Dam, this $100 million structure being formally dedicated today. And as we said before, for the stations that originally were with us for this broadcast, we will continue for a little bit longer. But for the ONN, this is Ray McDaniel reporting from the Robert S. Kerr Lock and Dam on the Arkansas River just south of Sallisaw.
Miss Becky Bray, would you come forward, please, and let me just introduce you again. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Miss Arkansas River Navigation of 1971. Mr. President, would you take it, At this time, I would like for Bob Kerr Jr. and Bill Kerr and Mrs. K. Kerr Clark to come forward for a moment, please. And Mr. President, would you stand here also? Just a little extra we've added on to the program. Underneath here is the flag. And if you all would just it's the plaque. It's on the Robert Kerr. If you'll stand forward and then just take it off. I think it's appropriate, Mr. President, if you would assist here. This will be the official plaque, and I'm sorry that it's kind of covered up, but such a meaningful event, we naturally have to have the news media covering it. But this is the official plaque that will be placed on dedicating the Robert S. Kerr Lock and Dam. And the band plays the fitting song, our state song, Oklahoma. I think it was appropriate that we close that dedication with the favorite song of all of us who remember Senator Kerr and his dedication to Oklahoma. And now what we all came for, I'd like for Congressman Albert and Congressman Edmondson, yes, thank you. Senator, I said Congressman Steve because he was on my program. And Senator Harris, would you come forward? And Governor Barnett, would you join them, please? And Mrs. Johnson, I'm going to make this a crowded dedication. May I pull this back? I'm going to, oh yes, equal opportunity, Congressman Hammerstead of Arkansas. Come on. Watch out, that's going to be the most over-introduced man at Oklahoma meeting I ever been to. I want you to know. Ladies and gentlemen, this button will officially open and complete the dedication of the Lock and Dam. There are two things while they're standing here that I would like to take the privilege of saying. First, upon the conclusion of this dedication, would you please remain where you are so that the President and his party can go and make commitments as they must make as they attend other functions. So please allow him to, we appreciate, Mr. President, you being with us, and Mrs. Johnson. I'd like to read a telegram addressed to Senator Hamilton, Senator of the state of Oklahoma, co-chairman of the Dedication Committee of the Robert S. Kerr Lock and Dam. And this, I might say, in the beginning is from the White House, Washington, D.C. It is a pleasure to send my greetings to all who take part in the dedication of the Robert S. Kerr Lock and Dam. This successful completion of the first part of the Arkansas River Navigation Project is a tribute to the persevering efforts of many dedicated men and women. I know that these efforts will be highly rewarded as the project nears realization, as the lives of countless citizens are enriched by the benefit it promises to bring to that area. I salute your fine spirit of cooperation, and I am pleased to note that former President Johnson will be your main speaker. My warmest greetings to him and all you who participate. Richard Nixon. And now, if these distinguished members of the Kerr family and the congressional delegation, our governor and our president and his first lady, would each place a hand upon a hand, and this is going to be old baseball style. You know how you see who got to bat first? I'm going to let President Johnson bat first, and with the rest of you, please put your hands on top of President Johnson's hand. Move in, please. Just fill it up here in pyramid style. Would you reach in, please? Don't anyone push yet. Okay, who's on top? Oh, wouldn't you know, he's from Arkansas. Okay. Shall we open the dam, gentlemen, and ladies push? There's the horn sounding. Ladies and gentlemen, the Robert S. Kerr Lock and Dam is officially dedicated.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard the sounding of the horn, which officially dedicates the Robert S. Kerr Lock and Dam here on the Arkansas River just south of Sallisaw. There's been an estimated 5,000 people or so attend this. They continue to stream in even after the ceremonies had started. Of course, now the crowd has been asked to keep its places as the former president and the dignitaries leave the dedication site here for other commitments that they have. As we said earlier, a riverboat was launched through the W.D. Mayo Lock and Dam earlier during the ceremonies there, and that riverboat has made its way upstream and is now here at the Robert S. Kerr Lock and Dam. We had rain last night. Matter of fact, we had rain all day yesterday, and of course we were all very nervous as to what the weather conditions would be, but it has turned out beautifully, and Mother Nature has certainly cooperated with us in that all the coloration on the hills here of eastern Oklahoma is just absolutely beautiful. The colors are gorgeous, and I'm sure all those who are camera bugs will do an awful lot of picture making of the beautiful scenery that we have here in eastern Oklahoma. Now, as I understand it, the remainder of this river will be open very soon, probably soon after the first of the year. Of course, navigation will follow the Arkansas River to Muskogee, as I understand it, and then the Verdigris River to the port of Catoosa, just east of Sallisaw. This concludes this program. We are certainly happy to have had the Arkansas stations and all the other stations that have joined us for this. And for now, this is Ray McDaniel reporting from the Robert S. Kerr Lock and Dam site, which has just been officially dedicated to the Arkansas River south of Sallisaw, officially opening navigation into the state of Oklahoma. Thank you and good afternoon.